Hello, my name is Matthias and welcome to the FPL Scope and my update for my zombie squad, which I haven't really talked about since game week 6. And if you don't know what a zombie squad is, it's basically where you have the same squad for the entire FPL season, where you have no transfers, no changes to your team, no captaincy changes, no chips used, no nothing basically. So you make a team in game week 1 and that should last you until game week 38, and then you see how well you've done at the end of the season. And in game week 6, I had actually done pretty well. At that point, I was 414k in the world with the zombie team, only 13 points behind my own actual team where I've done the transfers and changes and stuff, and about 102 points behind number 1, which wasn't too bad at that point of the season in game week 6. But since game week 6, the zombie squad has sort of taken a nosedive of sorts because it has been a lot of injury issues, which is always the worry when it comes to zombie squads. So let's just go through actually and see each game week how the zombie squad has done for the past 6 or 7 game weeks and see how it stacks up compared to my team and the world number 1 at this current point in time right before game week 13. And what we're also going to do is going to look at the best potential zombie squad that you could have had from game week 1 until game week 13 and see how that would rank in the world, because spoilers, it is pretty damn good. So yeah, you're gonna see that at the end of the video. So let's go through each and every game week for my own zombie squad first and see what went right, what went wrong mostly, and yeah, just see how the zombie squad is done in general. And as you can see, this was the zombie squad going into game week 6, and you can already tell from a couple of the players that it's not going to be a fun ride from now on, because a lot of these picks are not looking so good anymore. At least for the first 5 game weeks, it looked pretty good. 414k in the world, which is decent. But the last 3 game weeks, maybe not so much. But let's move on to see what happened in game week 6. And we got a score of 62 points, which was not too bad. We had the game between Spurs and Arsenal, which ended up being 2-2. Madison, Saka with 2 pretty huge scores there. Guardiola with a clean sheet. Onana with a clean sheet. Estupiñán with a clean sheet. Or not a clean sheet, an assist, I guess, because they haven't kept a clean sheet so far this season, Brighton. But that was actually pretty good point totals from some of the differential picks. I mean, at that point, Estupiñán wasn't the differential, but Guardiola, Onana, Madison at that point was also decently differential as well. So pretty decent game week, 62 points. So game week 6 was actually pretty good, but from that point on, not so much with the good results going forward. As you can see, Chilwell with 0 points as well. This was his final game. Estupiñán is about to reach his final game as well before his injury. There's going to be a lot of injury issues, as we'll see with this squad. Game week 7, we had the 6-1 win for Aston Villa against Brighton. Estupiñán with a -2 from it because he was subbed off at the half. And that, as it turned out, was due to a significant injury that has kept him out of the team since then. So pretty bad times for that. Guardiola also didn't play because that's going to happen with Guardiola. Once again, Julian Alvarez comes in. Alvarez, who is first bench on this zombie squad, is going to play most game weeks. I think he's played every single game week since game week 3 onwards, basically, which isn't too bad because Alvarez has been a really good pick so far this season. So yeah, that's actually one of the picks that I'm really happy about with the zombie squad with Alvarez as first bench, just in case of injuries. And as we can see from this team, there's a lot of injuries in general. This game week, not too much to talk about really. João Pedro comes off the bench as well with 4 points. Decent to see, but João Pedro as well is not the best pick. Could have been a much better pick there, I guess, as well. Haaland blank. Been a couple of Haaland blanks in this part of the season. Game week 6 until game week 9 or 10, I think. He was like sort of playing below his level, Haaland. He's turned it around since, but yeah, a bit of issues during this part of the season for the perma-captain in Haaland as well. Gabriel with a clean sheet here, 6 points. It's one of the few points that he has gotten since, pretty much. But as we'll see in game week 8, he also had a pretty good score in game week 8. This is when Gabriel played against Man City and Arsenal kept the clean sheet, surprisingly. That's the thing with these big 6 matchups. You can't really judge what's going to happen. It could be a 1-0 win for Arsenal. It could be 4-4, as we saw now between City and Chelsea this past game week, game week 12. Really hard to predict those big-time matches. So that's the case in this match as well, with Gabriel getting a clean sheet and 2 bonus points and keeping both the City attackers from getting any points because they both blanked. Haaland with 4 points as the captain and Alvarez with 2 points as well. Martinelli and Madison, 1 assist each, I think, in this game week. 6 points each, not too bad. Other than that, not really that much to talk about with this team. 6 points from Udogie off the bench as well. This is one of the few good game weeks we've had for Udogie. Been really unlucky in terms of the zombie squad, where Udogie would have been so nice to have consistently at this period, just playing and getting points, because both Chilwell and Estupiñán had been injured at this point of the season and are still injured to this day. So Udogie would have been a really nice player to have for these few game weeks, game week 8 until game week 12-13, for him to provide points and play and score. But as we're going to see, that's not going to be the case, because let's look at game week 9. Not actually game week 9, game week 10 is actually where it goes all wrong for Udogie. But 1 point from Udogie here, 9 points from Alvarez, once again off the bench, pretty good from him. Haaland with 1 goal against Brighton, I think. This was when Alvarez and Haaland scored 1 goal each against Brighton. Maddison with another 9-pointer. Maddison has been just a really good pick so far this season. But as we know now, he is injured, so he's also going to be a worry for this zombie squad going forward. But yeah, other than that, not much to talk about with game week 9. Pretty lackluster game week in general. But we're going to get an even worse game week pretty soon. But let's move on to game week 10. 73 points. This is actually a really good game week. This was a really high-scoring game week in general. Haaland with 32 points as the captain. Diaby with 13 points against Luton at home. It's always, once again, a good reminder to keep your players when they have really good fixtures, even if they have sort of like been struggling with form or have some tough fixtures afterwards. I've had this both a couple times this season. I've sold players before, like when they had one last good fixture before a tough fixture run. I've sold them and then they've punished me straight away by scoring in that easy fixture. And that's what Diaby did to some of his owners at this point, because he had not been doing so well in the game weeks prior to this. But then 13 points against Luton at home, really good. Maddison again providing the points. He's just been so consistent this season in general for Spurs. He's going to be a really big miss for Spurs as well going forward. 6 points from him, 6 points from Saka, who's also been consistent, but sort of annoyingly consistent, because he's not been like as explosive as we want him to be, but that's an entirely different story. Should also be noted, Rashford at this point is just blanking every single game week. Before the season started, I had really high hopes for Rashford, and that's why I picked him in the zombie squad. I thought he had like unlocked a new level under Ten Hag last season. He was so amazing last season, especially from the World Cup onwards. He was just absolutely fantastic in FPL. But both Rashford and Man United have struggled mightily this season, and that's why he's going to be, in the end, I think he's going to be just a really poor pick for the zombie squad team. But before the start of the season, I was so sure about Rashford, so I don't really begrudge making that choice. But if I had someone else, especially if I had enough money to go for Salah, that would have been the move, because once again, Salah has proven that he is absolutely worth the money, even though he is one of the most expensive players in the game. Guardiola with another clean sheet here. Guardiola is sort of like an interesting pick. I thought before the start of the season that he was going to play most games, because that has usually been the case for Man City centre-backs under Pep. Whenever he's brought in a new centre-back, they have pretty much played every single game right from the get-go, compared to the attacking players who usually take more time to get settled into the team. But this season has been sort of different again for Pep Guardiola and Man City. He's actually had his offensive players play more games. Jeremy Doku has just come straight into the team and played a lot of minutes. And meanwhile, the defensive players have sort of been more like on the back burner, like Guardiola, who's sort of in and out of the team. But 6 points from him this game week, which is nice to see. Just a good game week in general with 73 points. But as we know, all of us that play FPL, we know what happens in game week 11. That is going to be one of the worst game weeks of all time. And it is also the case for this team. 16 points, which is just absolutely awful. Everyone blanking except for Onana with the clean sheet. But that is also, again, taken away from Udogie coming in as the sub, because both Chilwell and Estupiñán are out injured. And that means Udogie comes in, and he had the -4 points from getting a red card and conceding 4 goals against Chelsea. So yeah, that's not what we wanted from Udogie from the start of the season. Really happy with the Udogie pick in general. I think I was one of the first people to like sort of have my eyes on Udogie from the get-go this season. He has been sort of disappointing after a really strong start to the season. He's been sort of disappointing in terms of how good Spurs have been and how little points he has gotten because of injuries and red cards and stupid stuff like this. But I think Udogie is going to be a great pick across the whole season in general. I just wish I had him in the starting lineup, to be honest, from the get-go, because he had a lot of good scores at the start of the season where those points were not counted for the zombie team because he was stuck as the third guy on the bench, basically. for this team. Either way, this game week was just an absolute travesty in pretty much every way. No, not that many points at all. Don't even have 3 playing defenders because Guardiola wasn't played in this game in game week 11. And like I said, Chilwell and Estupiñán out injured. Rashford also didn't play in this game as well. Just another really poor game week from Rashford in general. So game week 11, as was the case for most of you guys as well, just a terrible game week for the Zombie Squad. So a couple of pretty bad game weeks in general, 73 points in game week 10 notwithstanding. But as you can see from that, this Zombie Squad is not going the best since game week 6. But let's move on to game week 12. 64 points, another decent game week, but another game week where we didn't have enough playing defenders. Also had Guardiola with 0 points from the 4-4 game against Chelsea. Chilwell obviously didn't play, but Estupiñán and Udogie didn't play either, so no full backline for this game either. I think that has sort of been like one of the downfalls with this team, the Zombie Squad. I've gone with too many like all or nothing defenders who are just like either they get like 15 points or they get 0 points. I probably should have gone with more safe picks, more players that will just get clean sheets pretty much consistently. I think that's been one of the biggest flaws I've had with this Zombie Squad in general. The other flaw was just having too many high-priced midfielders in terms of Rashford, Saka, Martinelli. We know most people started this season with Bruno, Rashford, Saka, and Martinelli, for example. And both Man United and Arsenal have been pretty lackluster going forward, so that has not been a winning strategy at all, and not with this team either. When it comes to game 12, though, 32 points from Haaland helps a lot against Chelsea. Other than that, Martinelli 6 points, Saka 6 points. They've been sort of consistent, or at least Saka has been sort of consistent, but yeah, like I said, not that many explosive games. Alvarez also got an assist, 5 points from him, but other than that, not much to talk about. Onana with his 8 points in goal. That's also really nice. Onana has actually surprisingly been like a decent-ish goalkeeper, at least compared to the other goalkeepers so far this season. He's joined 6th for points, and he's only 13 points, I think, behind Alisson, who has the best score out of all the goalkeepers. He's only 7 points behind Johnston, who is the best potential pick for the Zombie Squad, as we'll see in this next slide when I talk about the best Zombie Squad so far this season. But yeah, Onana's actually been like not too bad, at least compared to the other goalkeepers. So as someone who had him in my own team for game week 1 and then sold him in game week 3 or 4 or something, sort of regretting that, but at the same time can't really regret selling Onana because he's been, apart from FPL, he's been really bad this season. But I also think he's going to bounce back because I think Onana is still a great goalkeeper, and yeah, we shouldn't really just throw him out and say that he's washed and done. As we remember with David De Gea as well, for Man United, he also struggled a bit in the start of his campaign for Man United, and then eventually he became one of the best goalkeepers the Premier League has ever seen. So yeah, I wouldn't really, in terms of just regular football, I wouldn't really discard Onana at this point. I think he is an outstanding goalkeeper, and he has had some really good saves this season as well. It should be noted. It's just been too many mistakes, and Man United have just been in disarray in general. But yeah, that has been the Zombie Squad so far. So let's take a look how it's looking for game week 13 and see how it's doing in the overall ranks and stuff. And as you can see, overall rank of just about 4 million, which is really bad, but that's probably what we can expect from a Zombie Squad. It's really difficult to pick a good Zombie Squad because you never know what's going to happen in a season. But as you can see, the issues don't really stop there either. You can see that Chilwell is out for a while still. Maddison is out until the new year, most likely. Estupiñán is still out probably this game week and probably a couple game weeks more as well. So this team is really struggling, especially if Udogie is out injured at the same time. Alvarez is going to continue coming off the bench. He's pretty much going to play the whole season, which is not too bad because I think Alvarez is going to end up being one of the best strikers in FPL this season, and he has been so far as well. So in general, if I were to make some changes to this team, there's just like with hindsight at least, obviously Rashford shouldn't have been there. Martinelli, I still think like, it's just, I don't know what's happening with Arsenal this season and why Martinelli has not been as efficient, because Martinelli is still that guy. He's still a really good player. It's just the system that Arsenal are playing this season just doesn't lend that well to the attacking players for some reason. Both Saka and Martinelli have looked less lethal this season than they did last season. Ødegaard as well, who's been out the last few game weeks with some injuries and stuff. Maybe that's affecting things as well. And maybe it's just a more defensive sort of tactic from Arteta as well. That's making them more defensively sound, but then less viable offensively. So So yeah, kind of disappointing with Saka Martinelli, but I don't really... Maybe Martinelli should have been someone else. It probably should have been a cheaper midfielder, because there were a lot of 6.5 midfielders that I really liked before the start of the season. So I probably should have gone against that and had like a cheaper midfielder rather than Martinelli, and then either upgraded Rashford to Salah. But like I said, I had a lot of faith in Rashford before the start of the season. Either upgraded Rashford to Salah or upgraded Joao Pedro to like a decent backup striker, and then I could have had two strikers starting, probably Alvarez and Haaland, and had a third striker on the bench, and then had only 3 starting defenders, because starting the season with 4 defenders, probably not the best idea. But before the start of the season, I sort of had this feeling that defenders were undervalued this season, because last season they performed so badly. And that's why I sort of went with some nice differentials in defense, but that hasn't really worked out either. Guardiola has played less than I expected him to. Chilwell has been injured, which sort of is expected. A Stepinian injury is not expected, really. So that's sort of like the big gut punch this season, because I had so much faith in Stepinian before the start of the season, and Brighton have just been sort of less impressive, especially defensively this season, than I expected. And obviously the injury to Estepinian has been a major blow as well. But Estepinian, for what it's worth, I would choose in the zombie squad 10 out of 10 times. Like, I don't really regret that choice at all. It's just unfortunate with the injury. The other thing was also the goalkeeper. I was really close between picking Onana and Johnston, and it seems like Johnston is going to be the best goalkeeper this entire season, because Crystal Palace are really good defensively, as we'll see in the next slide, with the best zombie squad so far. So that's also another change I would probably do. And then Chilwell, probably shouldn't have seen the injuries coming, but the way he was playing in preseason and the way Chelsea have been playing as well, I just felt like I had to go for it and have someone who can score a lot of points when he plays, and then just be benched and have other good defenders come in for him when he's injured. Sadly, that hasn't worked out with Udogie so far this season, but I think it wasn't the worst strategy either, because I thought Udogie would be like a really nice backup option who would get a lot of game time, even off the bench. But it's just been really unfortunate with Udogie's injuries and suspensions coming at the exact wrong time of the season for this zombie squad to thrive. But either way, about a 4 million rank overall for this zombie squad so far. It's 98 points behind my own team, so I'm pretty happy that I don't have a zombie squad for my own team, because yeah, I gained a lot of points from being able to do transfers across the season. And it's also 219 points behind number 1, so I think maybe some of you guys might actually scoff at the thought of this team, or a zombie team in general, having any chance to be number 1 overall, but that is not the case. As we've seen the past few seasons, I made a video on this before as well, looking at the best zombie squads from the past like 5 or 6 seasons, and a couple of those seasons, 2 or 3 or 4 of those seasons, I think actually, it ended up winning the whole thing with like the best zombie squad, if you had picked the right squad from the start of the season. Without chips, without transfers, without changes, without anything, you would have still won Fantasy Premier League without any changes at all. And as we'll see now, let's take a look at the zombie squad for like the best potential zombie squad you could have had so far this season, and see how that stacks up in terms of overall rank and how many points it is compared to number 1 overall. So yeah, as you can see, the best potential zombie squad this season would have had 909 points total, which is 148 points more than my team, where I have done transfers, captaincy changes, I haven't used any chips so far, to be fair, but that's a massive difference, 148 points. And that is also enough to be easily number 1 in the world so far. If you had this squad from the start of the season until now, you would have had 909 points, be number 1 overall, and be 27 points ahead of number 1, which is just absolutely fantastic, with all chips in hand, to be fair as well. But if you were a true zombie squad player, you would keep the zombie squad for the entirety of the season as well. So yeah, but this is not really that surprising at this point of the season. It's still really early, so with hindsight, where you can pick the best players so far, obviously you're going to have players that have played all the games so far and players that have performed really well so far. But that's going to change across the whole season. There haven't been that many double game weeks so far this season, which is always something that punishes zombie squads more than the regular squads. And we've also obviously played only not even half the season yet, which means that we could easily pick 11 players that have performed really well and not been injured. But I'm guessing several of these players might get injured at this point of the season and going forward as well. We actually need a really good bench and all that stuff. So it's going to be tougher for the zombie squad to keep up being number 1 overall, especially when triple captaincy comes into play, when people are going to triple captain Haaland when he has a really nice double game week. That's going to be some points lost as well. The bench boost, all the chips are going to play a massive factor. Most people haven't used their chips so far this season either, in terms of like the free hit and the bench boost and the triple captaincy. So yeah, it's not really that surprising to see the zombie squad being ahead at this point of the season. It's going to be more interesting to see if the best zombie squad is going to keep up number one for the entirety of the season. So that's going to be interesting to see. I don't really think this is going to be the best zombie squad when you come to game week 38 as well. I think there's going to be quite a few changes to the team that has performed the best so far. But in general, this team just looked really good. I wish this was my zombie squad, obviously, that I've picked. But even for the end of the season as well, just a bunch of great picks that we didn't really pay that much attention to at the start of the season. Heung-min Son especially was not really that popular in game week 1, but he's shown to be one of the best players in the game. As we've seen with Spurs, they've been so good this season, and Son has played up front as a striker, so he's been really good. But he's also like struggling a bit lately. Spurs are struggling a bit more now with injuries and stuff, so maybe Son is not going to be as good of a pick going forward. Same with Bowen, he might be out for a couple of weeks now with a knee injury. He's probably going to struggle a little bit for this team as well. So this team is probably not the best setup for the future. Also has 3 Crystal Palace defenders or defensive players in Johnston, Anderson, and Mitchell. So I'm not sure if this is going to last or going to be that good for the entirety of the season. But yeah, let's just go through the whole team basically for anyone that's not watching this video as well. In goal we have Sam Johnston from Crystal Palace. He's gotten 50 points so far, which is second best in the game, only behind Alisson, who has 56 points. But to get the team value down to 100 million, which was what we needed to do for the start of the season, we have to make some sacrifices, and one of those is Alisson down to Johnston. Who I think is, to be fair, probably going to be the best value goalkeeper this season. I probably would pick Johnston if I was picking like a zombie squad in hindsight now to last the entirety of the season. Then in defense, we have Kieran Trippier, who was a big miss for me, I guess, has been a big miss for me in terms of FPL in general. I haven't had him in my squad this whole season. And even though I'm doing pretty well, I'm in the top 200k just about. That has been like the one blemish for my season this season, or so far. Trippier was like one of my few good things last season, and now this season he has been like one of the few bad things against my squad. But 69 points for Trippier, really nice from him. Just gotten a lot of assists, a lot of bonus points as we expect, and a couple of clean sheets as well as a Newcastle defender, so he's just been really good. In defense, we also have Joachim Andersen and Tyreek Mitchell from Crystal Palace. They have been surprisingly good defensively, which I guess is not that surprising with Roy Hodgson as their manager. But towards the end of the last season, they were more like a team with a lot of attacking output rather than defensive output. So that's sort of been surprising in a sense. But yeah, Anderson obviously been a really good value pick, had a couple of goals as well. Tyreek Mitchell also had a goal in one of the games where he got 15 points. That also helped him. If we had more money available, it would have been even more points from having Saliba in defense rather than Mitchell. But like I said, we have to make some sacrifices. So 0.5 from Saliba to Mitchell is enough to give this team still a really good score for the price of 100 mil at the start of the season. Then the biggest miss for my own zombie squad this season is not having Salah, and I sort of warned people before the start of the season that going without Salah is a big risk because he's always going to be really, really good value, and he has proven to be fantastic value so far this season. He's been the best captaincy option with 101 points. As a captain, that would make him get 202 points in total so far this season. So yeah, Salah has just been amazing. Heung-min Son, 92 points or 82 points for Son. Yeah, like I mentioned earlier with him, playing as a striker for one of the best teams in the league, or the best team in the league so far in Spurs. It's just been amazing for him. Jared Bowen, despite like a pretty tough schedule for West Ham, he's just been scoring every single away game, just been really consistent. Back to his form from 2 years ago when he got more than 200 points in the FPL season. For 7.0, that's just fantastic value. And then we also have Brian Mbeumo, who has just been absolutely fantastic in the absence of Ivan Toney, which, to be fair, was something that I expected before the start of the season. I didn't expect him to be this good, however, and I also didn't include him in my own zombie squad because I thought when Toney comes back, Mbeumo was going to take a backseat and he's not going to be the best for the end of the season. But for the start of the season, not really that surprising to see Mbeumo in the best zombie squad so far because yeah, Mbeumo without Toney is just the focal point for Brentford and has just been fantastic this whole season in general. Haaland up front, he was always a no-brainer for any squad, whether it's the zombie squad or your own squad. He hasn't really been the best captaincy pick compared to Salah, but it's pretty close. It's 5 points between him and Salah. 96 points so far for Haaland. Just an amazing asset in FPL, even at the price of 14.0. And then we have Watkins, who was actually ahead of Haaland a couple of times this season. I think as late as like game week 7 or 8, I think Watkins was actually ahead of Haaland in terms of points. Watkins has just been fantastic. Aston Villa have been really good in general as well. That's why I had Diaby in the zombie squad, which is one of the decisions that I'm really proud of so far. But yeah, Watkins has just been amazing, scoring a lot of goals, getting a lot of bonus points. He had that massive haul against Brighton, of course, which really helped him in terms of the points scored so far. But 80 points from Watkins, really good value. And then Alvarez, who's also another pick that I had actually in my own zombie squad. Probably him and Haaland are actually the two only players that I have in my own zombie squad that have actually made it to the best zombie squad of the season so far. So Alvarez has been amazing. He's gotten most of those points for my zombie squad as well. He's gotten most of those points for my own team because I brought in Alvarez myself in game week 3 in FPL. So really happy with Alvarez. And then on the bench, it's basically just the best performing, cheapest possible player so far because all 11 starters have played every single game so far. They haven't missed a single game week, so we haven't needed the bench at all this season. So I just picked a couple of players that I really like for the cheapest possible price point. Areola in goal, been the best 4.0 goalkeeper by far. Turner has been dropped now. Areola has been pretty much just the 4.0 goalkeeper to go for from the start of the season. So yeah, Areola has been really good. 40 points from him. Brad Branthwaite has sort of had a slow start to the season because he didn't start in game week 1. And also Everton have been struggling a bit at the start of the season, but from now onwards, I think Branthwaite is one of the better picks in FPL for the price of 4.1, I think he is now, but 4.0 from the start of the season. I did actually predict before the start of the season that he would be one of the better 4.0 defenders. It's just I didn't have any 4.0 defenders in my zombie squad myself. But yeah, I said before the start of the season, I think Branthwaite is going to be a really good player this season. And as you can see now, he's being linked with big six clubs and stuff. So Branthwaite is really good. Papisar as well has been another terrific player this season who hasn't been talked about enough. He's been like one of the main reasons why, well, not one of the main reasons, but like he's been one of the surprising reasons why Spurs have been really good this season. Sarr has been just amazing in the absence of Bentancur, and he's going to have to play a lot going forward now as well with Maddison being injured. So I think Papisar deserves a shout as well. And then Issa Kabore as well. He was sort of talked about before the start of the season. He hasn't really performed that well in FPL. He had that one game week against Man United when he got a lot of points. But for 4.0, I think he's been showing a lot of promise in terms of attacking output at least. And Luton have been sort of better than expected so far this season. So I think he deserves a shout out as well. So yeah, that's pretty much the best zombie squad of the season so far. Would have been amazing if you had this squad from the start of the season. No one has actually done that because obviously that would be the #1 overall rank so far this season. But yeah, let me know if you think this squad will still be #1 at the end of the season. I don't think so. I think it'll still have a really good score at the end of the season as well, I think. Especially with the advantage it has already, 148 points ahead of mine. I don't think I'll catch up with this team by the end of the season. Maybe I will, but probably not. But I think the best zombie squad this season will actually end up being #1 when we come to game week 38 and we'll look back at what would have been the best zombie squad to choose from game week 1 until game week 38. And that's actually pretty interesting, I think, in general, that the zombie squad, you can actually outlast everyone else and win FPL without doing a single change. I think that's kind of romantic in a sense, something that we'd like to see in FPL in general. So yeah. Hope this video is enjoyable. I know some people requested this video to be made because they wanted to see how the zombie squad is doing. My own zombie squad, not so much, not doing that well, but this zombie squad has just been fantastic and is currently #1 overall. So it's going to be interesting to see how it's going to end up in this season as well. But that is pretty much it for the zombie squad update. I'm going to try to update this in about 5 game weeks time, which is pretty close in terms of just actual time because there's a lot of games coming up, a lot of game weeks coming up now as well. I think there's like 7 or 8 game weeks in the next like 35 days or something, which is crazy. The Christmas period is always crazy and it's always really fun for FPL as well. So stay tuned for all the content that's going to come up on this channel. I hope you enjoyed the video and I'll see you next time. Thank you and goodbye.